Welcome to Balmer's Workshop, and thanks so much for joining me here on my very first YouTube video. Today we'll be having a look at the build of a front bumper for a first gen, that's a 1989 to 1998 Suzuki Sidekick. This particular bumper is designed for a four-door model. I'm really excited to be debuting my work here on YouTube, as I've enjoyed other people's automotive builds on here for years, as well as obviously lots of other types of content. I'm an old guy. I grew up with only network programmed content to watch, and I've always wished for something like what YouTube offers. It's interesting, I think, to experience the trials, tribulations, and of course the triumphs of ordinary people who push themselves to achieve their goals and put it all on display. It's fun to watch the progression of the creators and their channels and feel a part of it in a sense. I hope that you'll enjoy my content and get a kick out of watching me get used to being on camera and put up with my initial choppy editing as I learn what I'm doing. So, please subscribe and be a part of my channel, give a like to the videos you find worthy, and comment as you see fit. I'll definitely use the comments to help me make choices on upcoming videos and content, so please let me know what you want to see. One of the first modifications to add to any 4x4 that's headed for the trails is a front bumper with a winch mount of some sort. Generally, in addition to a winch mount, an aftermarket bumper will provide an increased approach angle as well as solid recovery points. This bumper most definitely does all that and more. The Balmer Fab bumper is constructed from a 2" by 5" by 3/16 wall steel tube. Using rectangle tube as a basis for the bumper means it's extremely strong and is up to the job of supporting a receiver for winching and recovery purposes. I could get away with thinner wall tube, but for the small amount of added weight, I think the extra strength is well worth it. All of the brackets are made from 1/4" thick plate for ultimate strength as well. And the final bumper components are the corners, which are made from 2" by 2" by 1/8 wall square tube. This is a utilitarian bumper for a utilitarian vehicle. The point of this build is to create a super strong, lightweight bumper that is well suited for both hunting and general off-road duty. I do produce much more stylized bumpers for other vehicles, but the basic design of this one suits the Suzuki platform well, I think. Speaking of hunters, the owner of this vehicle is a hunter, and that's what this build is all about. This Sidekick is getting the full treatment here at Balmer Fabrication. It's being treated not only to the front bumper with recovery points as well as grille and headlight protection, but it's also getting a swing-away rear bumper, rock sliders, skid plates, and most impressively, a massive roof rack which pairs to a winch cradle that mounts into the front bumper that we're creating today. When I say that the roof basket pairs to the winch cradle, what I mean is, together they create an integrated winching system designed to effortlessly hoist game into the roof basket. I'll be creating videos featuring all of the components that are added to this vehicle, so please check back for them. Anyway, back to the front bumper. As I was saying, it's a utilitarian design built for versatility as well as strength. Having a receiver rather than a permanent winch mount allows the vehicle to be set up for both front and rear winching so long as a Balmer Fab rear bumper or a standard tow hitch are installed. This is very handy in countless situations, be it recovering the vehicle when it's stuck or recovering hunted game from the bush. It also means that the winch is on a cradle and is stored inside the vehicle for the most part, keeping it out of the weather and away from thieves. Of course, the receiver also allows the owner to mount a huge variety of other accessories as well as my optional license plate holder. Other accessories might include things like a bike rack or a tow hitch for precise backing in of trailers using the front of the vehicle. As I mentioned, this is a lightweight bumper, tipping the scales at just 65 pounds. That means that no suspension modifications are required to mount the bumper, and it won't cause your front end to sag. Over the last couple of minutes, you've seen me cut the tube into center and side sections with the bandsaw. I've cut the hole for the receiver in the center section, as well as the angles on the bumper sides using my freehand plasma cutter, and you've seen me cap the sides and weld them up. Now I'm installing the receiver. So let's relax together and listen to some tunes while I finish off all of the components and assemble them in my jig. A little history on the vehicle. The Suzuki Sidekick was also released under the names Asuna Sunrunner, Pontiac Sunrunner, Chevrolet Tracker, Geo Tracker, GMC Tracker, and a host of other names in the offshore markets. It was available as a two-door convertible with soft and hard tops, as a two-door tin top, or in a four-door configuration, which is the model featured today. Initially, an 80 horsepower, 1.6 liter, 8-valve, 4-cylinder engine was available. In 1992, a 16-valve engine was introduced to the North American market, which produced 95 horsepower. But a lot of people prefer the earlier 8-valve engine to the 16-valve thanks to better reliability despite the lower power. 1993 brought a minor facelift, an update of the dash, as well as a few other small changes, and a sport model was introduced in 1996 that included a 120 horsepower, 1.8 liter 16-valve engine. The sport version also had dual airbags, two-tone paint, and 16-inch alloy wheels. When the Sidekick first debuted, it was popular with young people and beachgoers, as it was a cute little convertible that was good on gas and even had four-wheel drive. It was not, however, considered to be a formidable four-wheeler. The off-road crowd at the time was enamored with the performance of the Suzuki Samurai. It was a very capable and tough little rig, especially loved by hunters. The Samurai was released until the early 90s, so for a little while buyers could choose between the Sidekick or the Samurai. As time went on, however, the Samurais, like their namesake, began to disappear. They were abused far more and far more often than Sidekicks were, and they were more prone to rust as well. So Sidekicks began to venture out in the woods a little more often, and to the surprise of many, they turned out to be quite capable, even in stock trim. They did suffer from minimal ground clearance, poor approach and departure angles, as well as a few other deficiencies, but it didn't take long for aftermarket support to build and to solve these issues. And that is, of course, where I come in. I've been building vehicle accessories for 10 years, originally as a hobby and now as a small business. I work on all sorts of different vehicles, I build production bumpers and other parts for many brands, and I do custom work on anything. But my main focus is on Suzukis and Sidekicks especially. If you'd like to check out my website, balmerfab.com, you'll see a selection of accessories for Sidekicks, including front bumpers, rear bumpers, skid plates, rock sliders, light bar mounts, roof racks, winch cradles, and even full exo cages. There's also plenty of pics on the custom work I've done on Sidekicks and lots of other vehicles. For even more great content, check out my Facebook page. I add the most current project info there to keep you up to date with what's going on in the shop. bumper is all tacked up and ready to be removed from the jig. Just pull all the clamps off there, grab a pry bar and pull it out. And we'll get a stand and mount it back up onto the stand and ready for full weld up. I shouldn't say ready for full weld up. We'll throw a brace bar on there first to make sure that it doesn't distort under heat when we're fully welding it. But right now I'm just cleaning up the jig and getting it ready to put away. My friend Sean is going to give me a hand putting it back on the wall, which is much appreciated. And then we'll go ahead and weld up this bumper fully. So there you are. You can see that I've braced it on the back side so that it can't distort under heat. And now I'm just fully welding it. And after that, of course, I will sand my welds down and blend them smooth. And we'll remove that brace bar once the bumper is all cooled down. And then after that, we'll put it back on the trolley for fit up on the truck, run it up to the truck, tack it to the brackets, and move on from there. Modifications required to mount this bumper. The stock bumper is mounted using 4 8mm bolts, which, while being strong enough to support the stock bumper, is miles away from being suitable for recovery purposes. So, I mount my bumpers by welding through frame mounting tubes into the vehicle's frame horns. The bumper is then mounted using 1/2-inch grade 8 bolts which pass through these frame tubes, and this means total peace of mind even in the most extreme circumstances. On the other hand, it does mean my bumpers are less appealing to some folks as an item to be shipped because they require vehicle mods, but again, I think it's well worth it for a mounting system you can trust. If the customer doesn't have the skills and tools needed to weld the mounting tubes in place, any competent metal worker, welder, fabricator, can complete this portion of the job in short order with the supplied parts and instructions. So getting the job done locally really shouldn't be an issue for the customer. The finished product. There's the tubes nicely welded in place. You can see that they protrude slightly out of the frame so that you've got a nice mating surface for the bumper brackets. Alright, so just installing the bumper mounts onto the truck here. What I like to do if I have the vehicle in shop, throw my bolts through like so. Some stainless steel washers on the inside. The reason I use stainless steel washers is they're thinner than your average washer. These are only about maybe just over a 1/16 of an inch thick, and those give us back spacing away from the frame. That'll happen obviously on both sides, so that the brackets will sit slightly more inboard than the outsides of these mounting tubes here. And then that way, when we go to put the bumper on afterwards, it won't have a friction fit between these. It'll be able to slide in there just nicely and be pulled tight against those tubes by the mounting bolts. So just throw a flat washer on either one of these guys and a nut, and then we will tighten it up, setting it to 0 degrees. And by 0 degrees, or 90 degrees rather, 90 degrees on this face here, so that the bumper sits 90 degrees to the ground. So just grab a digital angle finder here, set it to 90 degrees. Ready to go, and now we'll repeat the process over here. Bracket is going on the inside of the frame. Bolts are going to go through flat washers, stainless washers to act as spacers. Then the bracket goes in, flat washer, and a couple of nuts. Grab the angle finder, set it so that you can see it there. Sitting at 89.8 right there, so that's just about perfect. So we'll go ahead and start snugging that up. 0.2 of a degree I'm going to deal with, that's just fine. And there we go. So that's ready to have the bumper placed up against it. Making sure that it's centered, center line to the center line of the grill. And that's in place, and because the battery is disconnected, I'm ready to go ahead and tack that up once I'm happy that it's sitting level left to right. Okay, so pretty much ready to weld this thing up here. One thing I forgot to mention is that although I do check my angle to make sure that it's consistent with the truck as noted, but the other thing that I do is I also pick a known point at this, I'm going right in the corner of the bumper, and I'm at 9/16 of an inch between the bumper and the bottom of the grill, and it's identical over here, so I've confirmed that as well. So try to make sure that it's as straight as it can possibly be before I go ahead and weld it up, and that is what I'm about to do right now. Hold for a second. And what I can do now is pull my stands out. And I can see no movement in the bumper. And so far I don't. Nothing. So it's solid. Ready to go. So now I can unbolt the bumper, pull it off, put some gussets in place, tack that in, pop it back on, double check that everything fits really well still, and then I can go ahead and weld it all up. So that's the next step. Take this thing off. So when I have the vehicle in the shop for fit up and installation, I find it quickest to mount the brackets to the vehicle and then tack the bumper up to them in place as you've seen me do here. However, when the customer will be installing the bumper themselves, the brackets are welded to the bumper ahead of time so that the customer receives a complete bumper, powder coated and ready to go. In that case, the bracket hole locations are marked on the frame by mocking the bumper into place and using the holes in the frame brackets as a guide. I mentioned powder coat, and it's important to note as well that all of my products are sandblasted prior to powder coating, and a fusion bonded, rust resistant primer is always recommended too. I generally use a semi-gloss black powder coat to finish things up, but a huge array of custom colors are available as well. Alright, let's have a look at some tube bending. First, I'm going to bend the tube that will serve as grille protection. This is 1 3/4 by 1/2 oval ERW round tube. I've designed this in such a way that the legs of the tube land on the bumper right where the center section meets the sides of the bumper for a clean look. As you can see, I use a manual bender. A hydraulic version would be nice, but I've made do just fine with this for many years. It does everything a hydraulic bender can do, it just takes a bit of effort. Tubes with a single bend are very straightforward because you don't have to worry about the plane of multiple bends lining up correctly. You just have to make sure that you don't overbend because it's very tough to open a bend back up again, especially in heavy wall material such as this. The Grille tube has 2 bends in it, so I do have to pay very careful attention to the plane of bend. In this case, that means that I have to be sure that the first bend is sitting exactly 0 degrees compared to the bender die when I create the second bend. I've used a digital angle finder for this for some time now with great success. It's something which can be done by eye, but personally I like the confidence that the angle finder inspires. I use a template to check my bends. It's simply another pre-bent Grille tube that I set straight edges against to look for any discrepancies in the angles. Because the ends of the Grille tube are going to mate up to a flat surface, the top of the bumper, I can simply cut the tubes on a complementary angle to the bend. My bends in this case are 70 degrees, so I set my bandsaw to cut at 20 degrees and I wind up with a perfect fit up. Once I'm happy with the Grille tube, I set it in place and check the height at both outside edges of the top section of the tube right before the bends to be sure that I have them exactly even and I tack them in place. I should mention as well that I also check the lean of the Grille tube. This one is designed to sit 90 degrees to the floor. The headlight tubes are made from 1 1/4 by 09 oval ERW round tube, and therefore require a different die and follower for the bender. These tubes also have 2 bends in them, an 80 degree and a 35 degree, so again, it's very important that I match my planes of bend. Whenever possible, when I have multiple bends to make in a single piece of tube, I always make the larger bend first. Here I'm making my 80 degree bend before the 35 degree bend. That's because it's far easier to get an accurate reading from the angle finder when it's sitting on a bend that is as close to 90 degrees as possible. The outside end of the headlight tube will be mating up with the flat top of the bumper, so I cut it at 10 degrees, which is complementary to the 80 degree bend, and the other end is notched or coped to mate up with the Grille tube. I'll do a much more complete video tutorial on tube bending, notching and coping in the upcoming months, so stay tuned for that one. And I'll likely do some other tutorials as well, including metal forming, welding, sanding and blending techniques, and other metalworking procedures. If there's anything specifically you'd like to see, then let me know in the comments below. And now let's have a look at how I make sure the headlight tubes sit perfectly level and positioned exactly as I want them. Alright, so I've gone ahead and bent up the headlight hoops. The headlight protectors, if you prefer to call them that. And what I'm going to do is just quickly mock it into place and put in a light duty magnet behind just to hold it gently in place, more or less where I want it. And then I'm going to take that same piece of 2x5 material, just pop that in here so that I can do my routine with my calipers like I did before. Take those and find that we're way high here, so we need to come quite a long way back. Over here we're looking good. Over here we've got a big gap, but now I'm already at the end of my bumper, so I really can't use that. So what I've got to do, and I can see also that I've got a pretty good gap at the bottom of this notch, so what I need to do is relieve the top of the notch so that the tube will settle down on there a little deeper, and then we'll want to cradle in a little bit further, so I'll maybe have enough room there to weld at that point, or I may end up having to take this whole notch back just a little bit, but we'll start by just removing a little bit more out of the top and see what that gives us. calipers. We've definitely got a much smaller gap at the top now, but I think we've still got a little bit of an angle there. Not much, actually. Well, that's pretty much even now. But we are right at the very edge of that bumper. I'd like to bring it in by about 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to take 1/4 of an inch out of this whole thing. Now normally I would do that by putting it just back into the coping saw and take 1/4 inch out of it simply. But because the bend is so close to the cope, I can't do that, so I'm going to just have to trace this out and then do it manually. So that's the routine for that one. Alright, so I've gone ahead and shortened that end of the headlight hoop there so that everything will fit a little nicer. You can see now that the cope is a nice tight fit all the way around. No big gaps, very much weldable. And we've got a good shoulder left on the bumper there, so it's not right at the edge of the bumper anymore. So we'll just do a quick check with the calipers and make sure this thing's nice and straight. And there you are, exactly touching there. And over on this side, same thing. So we're good to go. Now we're going to tack it down at the bottom, tack it at the top, double check it, and then we're going to give it a couple more tacks to solidify it and move over to the other side. Alright, so that's tacked in place. Make sure nothing moved. Nice. Nice. Looks good. That out. And there she is for now. Bumper is mounted. I haven't fully welded the headlight tubes yet, nor have I fully welded the recovery points, or shackle mounts if you want to call them that. Reason being for the headlight hoops, I just wanted to have one final look with everything else welded up and check how straight they looked in this profile right here. And I am pretty happy with it, so I'm going to go ahead and weld them up after this. But there you go, you can see that one's nice and straight as well. And I've got to confirm that my recovery points are going to work with the winch cradle that I create, and that the customer doesn't want to go ahead with a tow bar on this bumper. If he does, then the recovery points will have to be traded out for tow bar mounts. But for now, she's all done, fits nice and tight. Lots of room for headlight visibility and signal light visibility. Lots of protection for both the headlights, fronts of the fenders, and the radiator and rollover situation. Nice clean lines along the side, and the fender transitions nicely into the bumper there. You got a nice clean line. I'll show you the other side as well. And again, nice clean line as it transitions into the fender. So yeah, there it is. The Balmer Fab first gen Suzuki Sidekick GMC tracker bumper. Ready for final weld up, and I got to drill some holes in the bottom of it and tap those out to accept a skid plate and finish the welds on the top here, and she's all done and ready for sandblast, prime, and powder coat. Ah, the satisfaction of a job coming to a close. This one's just about wrapped up, and I'm happy with how she's turned out. I run 2 weld passes on these shackle mounts to ensure proper penetration with a nice looking bead, so they'll definitely be up to the task when it comes to recovery situations. Just a note on working smart, the trolley slash stand that I'm working on is a really handy device. It's perfect for mounting bumpers with its multiple adjustments and hydraulic ram, and it's also great as a working stand. I can position the bumper flat like this, or right side up, or even upside down and backwards if I want. This is super handy for comfortable welding as well as good positioning for sanding and blending. The best results are, of course, always achieved when you can work comfortably, and that's what I always try to do. This trolley was easy to build, and it's become an invaluable piece around the shop, and so often the best tools are custom made, just like the best bumpers. It's a field of parts at Balmer Fab. Everything's going to powder coat this afternoon, and I've laid all the stuff out so that you can have a good look at it before it goes in its uncoated form. Moving on from there, we have the front skid plate. You can see that it's got a couple of decent sized holes in it, and those are to access the receiver pin in the back of this bumper. The reason I do them that way is just so that you don't have a great big receiver sticking out of the front of your bumper, since these are for temporary use kind of applications. For the most part, you're going to have nothing in this receiver or just a license plate holder. So nice not to have it stick out 4 inches. It's just a little tidier this way, tucked up flush. But it does mean that you have to reach in behind the bumper to get to the receiver pin. And that's why we've got those access holes in the skid plate. Again, this is the heavy-duty front bumper, made out of 2x5 by 188 wall tube with 3/4 inch thick shackle mounts on it. It's got a Grille tube made out of 1 3/4 inch round tube, 120 wall, and then some 1 1/4 inch tubing for the headlights, and that's 090 wall. Very, very stout, very utilitarian, and it's been a good solid design. This features a double shear mount here. You can see it's all 1/4 inch plate, and just absolutely rock solid. And my days with the ultimate hunting buggy Suzuki Sidekick are done. We got her all finished now, and give it one last go around while it's up on the hoist. The typical Balmer bumper there, with an awesome winch cradle that has a pulley on it. We'll show you that in a little while. The front skid plate. Moving forward here, we've got our skid plate that has access to the receiver pin. You can see right now I've got a license plate holder installed. We've got the license plate masked off, but that is the license plate holder. You can see him behind there. It just goes into the standard 2-inch receiver, and up in here you can see the back side of the hitch pin, and if I bring you over here, you can see the other side of the hitch pin. There it is, ready for the customer. Thanks very much for sticking through to the end of this video, and I hope you'll come back for more. Check out the other videos and stay tuned, as I'll be going over the unique winch cradle and roof basket winching system that I've designed for this vehicle, and there'll be tons more custom fab, tutorials, and probably even some barn find rescues to come. Please like the video if you liked the video, and subscribe for upcoming content. Your comments are appreciated as well, so don't be shy, and we'll see you soon at Balmer's Workshop.